Hi, and welcome to Deep Leadership. I'm your host, John Rennie. Well, I hope all is well with you today. It is Saturday morning, and I'm drinking a hot cup of Bottom Gun coffee from my friends at bottomguncoffee.com. I have another great show lined up for you, but before we get started, I just wanted to mention my latest leadership book. It's called You Have the Watch, and it's available on my website and on Amazon. In fact, it's already a #1 new release and bestseller on Amazon, and I'm really excited about this book because it's not actually a book. It's a guided journal for leaders to take you through an entire year of leadership training. There are 50 themes in the book, and each day you'll reflect on a different facet of that theme. This journal is designed to be on your desk at work for you to read and reflect on for about 15 minutes each morning. Leadership skills are like any other skills. You need to practice them to get better at them, and this journal helps you practice those skills. So if you're interested in this guided journal, go to youhavethewatch.com or Amazon to pick up your copy today. Now, if you are looking for other ways to support what I do on the show, purchase any one of my books at johnsrennie.com. Podcast listeners can use the discount code DEEP at checkout to get additional savings. Well, that is it. Today, my guest is Ira Wolfe. Ira is a 6-time author, speaker, and podcaster. He was named a top 100 HR influencer for 2021. In this episode, we talk about the future of recruiting, jobs, and the workplace. Now, there are a lot of things that are changing in the world of work, and Ira is the perfect person to talk to about this subject. I learned a lot from Ira, and I know you will as well. So, are you ready to dive in? Let's get started.
Welcome to Deep Leadership. Leadership is a people business. That's the philosophy of your podcast host, John Rennie. As a former Cold War submarine officer who spent 20-plus years leading businesses in corporate America before starting his own manufacturing business, he knows that leadership matters. Are you ready for some real-world, actionable advice from John as well as his expert guests?
I'm ready.
The show starts right now.
Welcome to the Deep Leadership Podcast. Today I'm joined by Ira Wolfe. Ira is often referred to as a millennial trapped in a baby boomer body. He was one of the top 100 HR influencers for 2021. He is the president and founder of Success Performance Solutions. He's also a TEDx speaker, a podcaster, and a top 5 global thought leader on the future of work and HR. He's a 6-time author, including his latest book, Recruiting in the Age of Googlization, his 2nd edition, When the Shift Hits Your Plan. So I'm excited to talk to him about what the future of jobs, work, and the workplace looks like. So Ira, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, John. And you got to be careful when you say that shift hits your plan, right?
I had to go slow on that one because I would be careful on that one. So first of all, it's good to meet you. And my question just starting off is what path do you take to become an expert on the future of HR in the workplace?
That's a great question. And that was never my intention. But it's an honor. I mean, when you somehow show up on the list and be there, because I also look at many people on the list, and I really admire them, and they're the people I look to, and I guess it's the great imposter syndrome affliction. It's like, how did I get here? So, I'm a student of change, a student of learning. I try to share, give information back. Somewhere it started out promoting my business, then you realize it's just about sharing and you'll understand this from the background. It's like raising the level floats all boats.
Yeah.
So again, it wasn't an aspiration. It's certainly something that you appreciate when you're recognized. No matter what walk of life you're in. And so I work hard to keep it to maintain it.
That's so cool. So, the comment when I introduced you, the millennial trapped in a baby boomer body, what do you mean by that? Because I really like that expression. And I think we need that. There are definitely, I'm a little bit older. I'm in my 50s, mid 50s. And there's definitely, I've seen it now having employed, the different, groups that have come through. Why do you call yourself that? And how does that give you the edge as far as looking at what's happening?
Well, just like how do you become a future work thought leader? I walked into a room and they said, gosh, from your voice, it's like, Ira, from your voice, we thought you were so much younger.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely got the baby boomer body. I feel it. I feel it every time I go to bend over and tie my shoelaces and getting up in the morning. So there's the aches and pains. But my mindset has always been, I guess at one point people called it an entrepreneurial mindset, or focused on always willing to learn and curious and whatever all those terms might be. And I guess you wrap it all up into one. And I became this millennial trapped in a baby boomer body. I wrote one of my prior books was Geeks, Skeezers, and Googlization, and it was about the fourth generation in the workplace and how technology was going to change it. It's now the title of my podcast. But it's going back, even to then, somebody the other day said, well, maybe it should be the geek in the geezer body. So I'm usually the tech person that people go to when they have that question or the future of work, and where many of my peers are retired, for sure. I enjoy what I'm doing. I love what I'm doing, and I think I got 20 or 30 years wrapped up into me, but I don't know if my body does.
I love it. So your main company, Success Performance Solutions, what is it that you do at that company, and what kind of unique value do you provide to companies, to clients?
The business is focused on employee assessments, whether it's pre-hire. We can test for things as simple as typing and data entry, and can somebody use Excel through leadership competencies, which is much more exciting and much more fun. And that's my focus on that. But we look at pre-hire, and for hourly positions, it might be as simple as, do they have a positive attitude? Are they willing? Do they tend to be reliable and show up for work? Senior leadership, we're looking at critical thinking skills, and can they lead others and mentor others and manage relationships and think strategically. And we work with the combination of different tools. So I love the assessment side. If you really dig back into my background, like a lot of other people, they came from different pathways. My first career, I was actually a dentist. I loved everything about dentistry but dentistry. People, the common question is, well, how did you make this change in the business? Well, I always looked at it that I had a business because I grew up in a business family. I had a business or that just happened to be in dentistry. I loved the marketing. I loved the promotion. I started from scratch and in a recession. I loved work. I have team members. I haven't touched a drill in 26 years. I left my practice 26 years ago, but I still have team members, staff, employees that they're in touch with me on holidays, my birthday. We're friends on Facebook. I've seen them grow. Many of them were 20, 22, 25 years old at the time. They're now grandparents, and I'm watching their kids grow, and some of their kids actually have kids. So I loved all that part, but the problem is I couldn't just show up for work, and then I actually had to produce the product. You're in manufacturing, right. That. If the enjoyment may not be there if you had to literally go down and produce everything that every piece of machinery, every piece that every goods that you shipped out. And that's the problem with dentistry. It's a relationship business, but I loved everything, but actually doing the work, and it's a very tough profession to scale. So I made the transition pretty easy, but I have a long way around that. But I love the diagnostics. I mean, I loved helping people. I like solving tough problems. People, local dentists and physicians used to send me these problems. They go, listen, we've done every test, but we can't figure out what's wrong. But they're still in pain. And I've always been a good integrator. As I joke, I used to get paid for differential diagnosis. Insurance used to cover it. Now I have to make a living and work hard at it and use good old critical thinking skills. But it also helped. It was about transferable skills. It's like people said, how did you make that transition? I knew how to market, knew how to build teams, knew how to deliver good customer service, and use my critical thinking skills. And they can be transferred to any job. out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I noticed that about that. I went on your LinkedIn profile, and I didn't know it was going to come up, but I thought it was interesting. But one of the things it shows, and I think people are listening in, you might go down a career path, and you might be deep in a career path where you decide, you know what, I'm not feeling the joy, I'm not enjoying part of that, and I can make the switch to something completely different. And you made that switch. You used all of your skills and experiences, but you moved it in a different direction. You're very successful with it. So it's a great example for those that are listening in. It's like, what if I don't like what I'm doing? What if I'm, 35, 38 years old, 40 years old? I don't like what I'm doing. You know what? You can still pivot, right? And there's a great example of you pivoting.
You can do it when you're 60. Yeah, I was 44 at the time, but I've pivoted multiple times, changed directions of the business. Yeah. Still in the same business. But no, you're so right. And there's two important things there. One is when we look at different generations, when, certainly in the 60s and 70s and prior to that, most people had one career. They might have had multiple jobs, but it was still in the same industry, in the same careers. There was a study done in Australia and they were looking at primarily the recent grads, young people, Gen Z, and they identified that they would have 17 jobs and 5 careers, but not necessarily, the careers would be in different industries. And which is a huge mindset change from having 7 jobs in one career. And we're going to move from generations and employees that were job hopping to literally career hopping and industry hopping. But that's where those transferable skills come from. And certainly to do certain jobs, again, going back to dentistry or whether it's engineering or manufacturing, and I want to go to somebody that has some experience or some knowledge that they've studied to be able to at least to be able to perform those procedures or do the work that needs to be done. But beyond that, and really emotional intelligence was the kind of the leaping stone for this, is in order to be successful, in order to get beyond just earning a paycheck and doing tasks, you need additional skills, and whether it's leadership, whether I've been focused on, especially for the last couple of years, on adaptability or agility. Everybody uses similar words. So, but adaptability or agility, and what are the skills there? And people throw out is like, everybody needs more grit. Okay. Everybody needs, we need to be resilient. Look how resilient we are after the last 2 years. The problem is they're reactionary. Grit and resilience are really, really important skills that people need to have. But they're very reactionary. It's waiting for something to happen and then reacting, where things like a growth mindset, being able to recognize that we need to take some risks and learn new things, and we're going to make some mistakes. And ultimately, it takes practice to go there, and mental flexibility, and then unlearning the things that we thought. And again, you're in your 50s. I got another decade on you. There are a lot of things that I just assumed I could coast. Hey, I've been through that. I know that, and realized that what worked in the 80s, 90s, and even 2000s isn't working today. And you have to be willing to kind of compartmentalize that and say, history, interesting, but I'm going to put it away in a shoebox in my brain. And maybe someday I can call upon it and recall it, but it's not going to help me solve today's problems. And so, I focus on, and those are all transferable skills. And so that's, that's what we do. And it's a long story about what success performance does, but it's it's me. It's what I do as well. And a lot of other people, as you suggested, are in a position that they're going to maybe forced to change careers, or they're just unhappy in their career and they can do it, and they need the courage to do it. And we are just stuck on job titles. Like people still say, it's like, you were a dentist? Like, how did you make that change? It was just a title I had for a while. I borrowed it for, 15 years, and it's on my resume, but it didn't define who I was. And I was stuck on that.
Yeah, I know. I was a vice president in corporations for years, but I never thought of myself as a vice president. I thought of myself as a leader. Couldn't care about what the title was, but people would say, "Oh, how did you get to be vice president?" I'm like, I don't really care. That's not something I hold near and dear to my heart. It's just whatever. That was the role I was in. But you're right. I think titles, kind of moving into the future of work, I don't think titles are that important anymore. As much important as the skills that the individual is trying to, or the skills and experiences the individual is trying to gain to have in their resume. It's less about the title. It's more about the experience. Is that what you're seeing? Kind of moving forward.
Oh, it has to be. Absolutely. There's study after study, and I always learn from other people that are a lot smarter than I am, or surround myself by people like that. And I follow the McKinseys of the world and Boston College Group and Conference Board and now Burning Glass Institute. I mean, people that are doing like tremendous work in that area. And for the last couple of years, they kept coming back, and they were talking about soft skills and they got and emotional intelligence. But it's really, really interesting that because of the pandemic, it got focused on agility and adaptability. And McKinsey released a study where they identified what they call deltas, the dimensions of essential talent. And there were 56 of them. So that's a lot. It's too much to, for any one person to be able to excel at more than a few of them. But when it came down to looking at job satisfaction, life satisfaction, employability, and the ability to make more income. So not just get a job, the acronym somebody told me years ago, a job was just over broke. Yes. That's what it was. So to make more than that, the commonality, the common thread that was driving that was four different aspects of adaptability. We talked about grit and resilience, but it was dealing with uncertainty. You're military, you're familiar with the term VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. I don't know a better acronym that describes 2020 and beyond.
Yes,
that was a topic of my TED Talk as well. So we talked about how to make change work for you. But we're going to constantly be dealing with volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And so what are the skills that we need to deal with that? Dealing with uncertainty, dealing with being able to think on your feet, mental flexibility. We call it mental flexibility. They called it the ability to make sense out of communication, out of miscommunication and misinformation. Those were skills. I mean, we never thought of those as skills before. It's like, well, some people just have it and some people don't. And only the smart people, only the leadership should have those skills. Now you need those just to get a job. I mean, just to figure out listening to the news. So yeah, those, whatever you want to call them, the soft skills, emotional intelligence skills, we call them, we focus on adaptability quotient, those type of skills, competencies. But relying on everybody else's research, World Economic Forum, McKinsey, everybody's pointing in that same direction. We're going to need to learn how to be pretty fluid and adaptable.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this days of being rigid, having one work for one company, have one sort of career path. I think those are over, right? I mean, we're doing, we're going to be doing lots of different things.
And look at the market.
Yeah, I mean, look at the market. Look where people are, where people had a chance, during the pandemic to reevaluate their lives a little bit. The work-life balance. What do I love to do? What am I doing? What I love to do? They got a taste for home. I got to work from home for a little bit. They got that feel a little bit of freedom for the first time in some cases. And they like, well, I'm going to move to a gig economy. I'm going to do some, I'll do side gigs. I won't even go back to work. So it's really interesting, the shift and change. Just in the past 3 years, for me, it seems like it's been really dramatic, especially with the amount of people who got a chance to work from home for the first time. And many of those will never go back to the office. I mean, many of those companies have shifted to a remote model, which is a big shift and one that I never expected to see happen in my lifetime. So, but the technology was available for it, so it sort of naturally went that way.
But people are struggling with that. I mean, every day you see a company trying to bring people back, and then then you get a report on how many people quit their jobs or refuse to go back, and then they rescinded that or they modeled that. And there's this debate whether it's a 4-day work week, whether it's a 3 a 3-2 work week, whether it's a 2-3 work week, whether it's 100% remote. The problem that's happening with that goes back to our skills. So what skills were needed is that the people, the workers, didn't necessarily have those skills, but after 2 years, they figured it out. The group that didn't figure it out was the topic of this show, which is really managers and leaders.
Yes.
They want to bring people back because they're saying it's not working, but it's working for the workers. And, the studies are showing that productivity is up, engagement can be up in the companies that do it right. But managers and leaders are really struggling with how do I manage people? 10% of my workforce shows up in person. Some show up on Tuesday and Thursday. Others show up on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Some show up once a month. I've got people working across the country. It's really a very distributed, I can't say asynchronous, but asymmetrical type of a workforce. And now I need to learn how to manage people that I don't see, that I see sometimes, that I see once in a while. The teams are fluid. It's not the same people showing up every single day. And you call a meeting and the same people are there that day, because some of the people are gig and some of the people don't work on Tuesdays. They're off or they have other obligations. So really the challenge is that we need to companies really need to up their game, with leadership and management and supervisory, how to manage that. It's beyond the technology. The technology is pretty much there. We just haven't learned how to use it. I mean, we've floundered our way through Zoom and other platforms to get there. And now it's you can't have an effective meeting. You can't engage people, when you're on a screen. Yet people do it. I mean, companies say, "Hey, we love working remote," and we have a thriving culture and people are engaged and are and all the measurements that they're using. And then you listen to another company in the same industry, in the same business with the same number of employees. Then it's like, it's not working for us. You don't understand our industry, and go, okay.
We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors.
Leadership skills are like any other skills. You need to practice them to get better at them. Best-selling leadership author John S. Rennie knows this. That's why he's written a new book called You Have the Watch. It's a guided journal for leaders designed to take you through an entire year of leadership training. By the end of the year, you will master 50 of the most important leadership skills. If you want to have a greater impact on the results and people in your organization, go to youhavethewatch.com and pick up your copy today.
Yeah, exactly. Some are taking advantage of the situation and they're learning, and some are still stuck in the past. Yeah. I have a question for you. So you've got the new book. Actually, the second edition of the new book, right? It's called Recruiting in the Age of Googlization, the second edition. I got to ask you, what is Googlization? What do you mean by that term? And I love it. I think I know what it means, but
when I wrote this, as I said, I wrote my book, Geek Skeezers and Googlization, and I was looking for. It just came out as an alliteration. It was going to be Geek Skeezers and Technology. And it was about how people and technology and business were converging. And it was one of those shower moments or driving down the street, or I heard something and it's like Googlization. And so and the alliteration was great. So Geek Skeezers, Googlization. But it really was about the convergence of people, technology, and business. The subtitle of the book, though, was the wired, the tired, and technology, and both of them fit pretty well, because there's, I was just looking up something today about digital illiteracy, and people were asking, like, what happened to all the workers? And I said, well, there are workers, but some of them can't apply online because they're digitally illiterate, which means they have a flip phone, and you can't apply to Indeed on a flip phone. So how do you reach them? And it's pretty shocking, because it's 1 out of 7 adults, including young people. It's not only that every young people is gifted and knows how to use technology, but 1 out of 7 adults in the U.S. is digitally illiterate. The number skyrockets when you go above 65 years old, but that's not the prime working age. But even at 25 to 54-year-olds, it's a little higher than it's about 20%. So you take 1 out of 5 people out of the workforce that can't even apply to your jobs because they can't get online, or their kids or grandkids or their spouse has to do it for them. It narrows, we keep weeding off people. We keep peeling off people out of the workforce.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Never really thought about that. It's just, now everything's done electronically. You've got to have, you have to have a presence online. Typically, if you're looking for a management position or, a salaried high, some sort of a salary position, they want to see what, do you have a LinkedIn profile? What's your web presence look like? All this sort of thing. And if you're just a digital, what do you call it? You're not there, right?
Digital nomad.
You're a ghost, right? Yeah. They're going to be like, who is this person? I can't research them. I don't know. I don't know their history. And so, but I imagine, like you said, even like when you get down to hourly positions and what have you, you put out how are you recruiting? How are people applying for the job? I mean, I still have people send me, resumes to my, to email, or
I still use email.
Yeah. So you see, but most times most companies have some sort of recruiting, system that you have to get into.
ATS,
Yeah.
So I mean, but it goes all the way down the line. So as things keep changing, one is how do I apply? So you can get as they said, your kids, your spouse, or a friend to submit your resume for you. But then what happens when you show up? And what happens when you get hired? And they said, we're going to send all the information for onboarding for the papers to fill out. Well, can't I come in and sign them? And no, you can't, because our headquarters is 1,000 miles away or somewhere else. So it's really a problem, and we knew it was coming. I mean, it's been predicted for a long time. So that's sort of recruiting in the age of Googlization wasn't necessarily about that part. It was about how fast the world was changing, and I tend to focus it on not the part that was left behind, but the people that were going forward and what companies needed to do. And so the first half of the book was literally the original title of the book was "When the Shift Hits Your Plan," and it was about change, and it was about what the future of work was going to look like. And then being the capitalist I am and the entrepreneur, it's like, how do I get paid? What would interest people? And I was working with HR, and I'm a marketer at heart. So the last half of the book was how do you market? How do you recruit, which is marketing, for talent in an age of Googlization? And little did I know, I wrote the book in 2017, and that was the first edition. And then there was a couple other chapters and a couple other things, and I added them. We added another 60 or 70 pages to it, and it came out in February of 2020. And here, lo and behold, March 2020 is the pandemic, and it's all of a sudden we're in the age of Googlization. It's not a 2030 prediction. It's a 2020 prediction, reality. And so it obviously became quite popular. I was doing a lot of speaking. I was quite busy. My business actually doubled during the pandemic, which totally, if you would have, being a futurist or attempted futurist and thinking about what's the future of work going to be like, it's like, how did I miss that? But the reality is that never, ever would have expected that the business would have grown. I figured everybody was going to pull back, tighten up. We'll go just like they've done in every other recession in the past or crisis, and it still hasn't stopped. We're still growing, and so fortunately there's a lot of companies that got it and are thriving and figured we need to do things differently because what we did in the past isn't going to work. And then you still have the companies that that resort to, we just can't find people. Okay, well maybe you want to try something different. Well, you don't understand my industry. Or, it's just all these young people. Young people just don't have that same work ethic as I did. If they have a different work ethic, and maybe better that they're not killing themselves to be able to do that, but they are hard workers. That's when I became the recovering millennial basher after I bashed them for a while. And it's like, and my granddaughter's a Gen Z, and, she's going to school full time, and she has 3 jobs. To be able to do that. It's like, no, I wish a lot of older workers, a lot of baby boomers, a lot of my peers had the same work ethic
Absolutely. I mean, most of my key employees are millennials, and they're running the show. I mean, they have the energy, the enthusiasm, the drive, the knowledge, the experience. I mean, every day I walk in, I'm impressed with what they're doing, and so you won't find me a basher. I'm a huge supporter of. I don't, everybody's bringing something different too. And I think the millennials bring something, I think they bring us something to the equation that I like, which is this work, a little bit more like a work-life balance. And then what does your company stand for? What are you trying to do in the world that's different? And I like that, because I think we, older generations, didn't care about that. I just want a job, want to make money. But we didn't have that same passion for what is this company doing in the world, and do I want to be part of a company that's doing something great, something special, something different? And that's they have a lot of drive for that, and I actually love that. I learned from them, and I think that's a good. It's a good way to they're good skills, it's just something good to bring to the workforce that I really enjoy. So
it's finding meaning, purpose, belonging. We interviewed somebody for our podcast today, and it was about belonging. I mean, it was literally just about belonging, which is the solution for diversity and inclusion and recruitment and retention. You name it. People just want to belong to something, and they're willing to give up compensation. I mean, they're not willing to tolerate a toxic work culture like our parents and grandparents and my peers did for years and years. It's like we want to know that we count. It's not that you need to pat us on the back and tell us how great we are every 5 minutes. We just want to know at the end of the day that we contributed to something, that we feel that we're part of it. That's pretty healthy. And, you've got a great attitude and a healthy attitude. And there's a lot of companies that have figured that out. And the other ones are, we're just going to throw more money at them.
Yeah. That doesn't work. Yeah. It's different.
Yeah.
So, as we think about all the shifts that are happening, Googlization, you've got the pandemic, the post-pandemic, you've got this, perfect storm in the labor market. What would you say is probably the number one skill or number one thing that leaders need to be thinking about and doing to be able to effectively run their companies, attract good talent, retain good talent in this, and all the things that are happening in the market, in the labor market today? What are some things? What are the top few things that leaders need to be doing right now?
Yeah, that's an easy answer for me. And despite the fact we talked about adaptability and grit and resilience and mental flexibility and learning, I mean, the one that stands out for me, the one skill that's in there is growth mindset. And even when we talk about employee experience in companies, company culture or creating that community, as we were talking about, creating purpose and meaning and being a purposeful environment, the theme that goes through that, the skill that you need to make all of that happen, is the growth mindset. And for those listeners who may not be familiar with that, I'd suggest there's so much information out there, including a whole bunch of TED Talks, is look up Carol Dweck, DWECK, and her book Mindset, which is about 20 years old. But she did a lot of research and she started with students. And it's like, why do so many successful graduates and athletes fail in life? And part of it was because they had this fixed mindset, which I fell victim to. I was a top student, and all of a sudden you live up to the billing. That that's just naturally easy for me. I don't have to really work hard. And the fact is, if I work hard, if I tell people that I really have to work hard at it, then they're going to think, well, you're not as good as we thought you were. And it becomes this downward spiral. So, the story that people can understand about a fixed mindset is, how often has somebody not, when you're in college, you didn't take a course that you really were interested in and you would have loved doing it, but it would have been really hard for you and you might have got a C, 2.0, but you wanted to maintain that 4.0 average. So you started passing up opportunities to learn things, to do things you may not have been naturally good at, or things that you would have had to practice. And it's a blow to your ego and it blows to your reputation if you screw up. And honestly, I mean, I have 3 degrees. I was top of my class in college, top of my class in dental school. And everybody says, oh, all those things come easy to you. And it was like, no, they really didn't. But I'm not going to tell you that. Right. I want you to think I'm just naturally smart. But then there were times that I really wanted to try something new.
Yeah.
And I didn't do it because what if I make a mistake? What will people think about me?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the age we're living in now, things are just that VUCA. Things are changing so quickly, so unpredictably. Things are uncertain. We're evolving. There is no such thing as a best practice anymore. There's not even a good practice. There's evolving practices. That's how you survive. That's the mindset you need to survive a VUCA world. And in doing so, it's what do I need to learn? Who could be my mentor? How do I learn that? I'm going to learn. I know I'm going to make mistakes, but I'm going to practice. I'm going to practice every day doing something. And when I started to look at, I've always been a fan, if you can't tell, of growth mindset. But one of the things that I realized is that everybody's trying to fix all these other problems, whether it's retention or recruitment or DEI or leadership. And the common theme was, how do you get people to try something new? Mm-hmm. It's more than just saying, I have an open mind. And it's more than just being curious. Is that how do you get people to, if you're right-handed, say, how do you become an expert being left-handed? Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, I'm just not very good at it. It's really awkward and it's clumsy and I made mistakes and I have to think too hard. Yeah, but what if what if you had to do it? Yeah. Could you do it? Well, we have to do stuff now. We have to think differently. Yeah. So the number one skill in my mind, and it's whether you call it a skill, a competency, or a mindset, is really developing the growth mindset. And once you have it, then you can share it with other people. And it really is contagious. It really is, because if they see the leader stumbling and make a mistake, and this is what we saw during the pandemic. When you looked at the great companies, and I remember being on a couple calls initially, 2% of senior executives said that remote work, that their company can go remote before the pandemic, 2%. And then within a few months, it was like 50 to 80% said we can do it full time, not full time, but we can do it at least part of the time. Yeah, I think it would work for us. But what you saw with these leaders is they became very vulnerable, where they in the past said it's unprofessional to have your kids walk into the room when you're in a meeting. It's unprofessional to have your cat be holding a cat or a dog, or the dog's barking, or the FedEx guy is knocking at your doors. There's too many distractions. All of a sudden, it was like, they're real people. Yeah. The dog's barking, the cat's, meowing, the grandchild runs into the room, the phone's ringing, the FedEx guy's there, the plumber's there. It's all this stuff. And they go, hey, this is life. This is it. And now I understand what it's like, but we have to become better at it. We have to.
Absolutely. I would say, I would say this is like, I say a lot, leadership is a people business, right? So, and I love people. So to me, all of the warts, bruises, cats, UPS drivers, I love it. We get to know more about the people that work for us when we have those experiences. And I enjoy it, but I imagine it was a big step out of the comfort zone for a lot of leaders that haven't had that opportunity. But I think I think you're right. I think it was a big shift that we had to think of. Everything was clean cut. Meetings were this way. We held them for an hour, nobody interrupted. And now suddenly
they weren't very good meetings. I mean, people complained about meetings forever.
Right.
It's like, our digital meetings are not very good. Well, you know what? They weren't very good. I'm old enough to having grown up when the biggest problem when I entered the workforce, there were people literally making a big living going around the country of how to stop how to have your employees not hanging around the water cooler. Right. And then all of a sudden it said, hey, that's where all this stuff happens. And
that's
then
where it happens.
How do you have more water cooler meetings?
Yeah.
But everybody was focused around the water cooler. But the meeting is notoriously, they've been terrible and they're still not very good, but it had nothing to do with whether it was in person or on screen. Correct. People didn't know how to run a meeting.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love this. This is so good. Ira, this is a lot of great stuff you talked about today. How can people find out more about you, your new book, and all your books and your company?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And again, this is fun. I really appreciate the opportunity. You can go to irawolfe.com. That's where we're rebuilding the website, so there'll be more and more information up there. I'm super active on LinkedIn, and please connect with me. I'll just let me know. Let me know you heard us on Deep Leadership with John, and I'll certainly accept the invitation there. And I put most of my material out there. Please, my podcast is Geek Skeezers Googlization. So it's a lot. It's a mouthful.
It's a lot of G's.
Yeah, but we talk a lot about what we were talking here. It's about the future work and hybrid and employee experiences and well-being. And we shifted gears. The first year we talked a lot about HR tech, and now we're talking about people. And it's a lot more fun talking about people.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we'll put links in the show notes for all those resources. Ira, again, thank you for coming on the show, and thank you for sharing all this experience, all this, these things that we need to be thinking about right now. So I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing all that.
I love doing it. Thanks very much, John.
Well, thanks again. Well, that's it for today. Thank you for listening to Deep Leadership. If you like this podcast, please subscribe and share so we can continue to build a world with better bosses. Till next time, this is John Rennie saying take care and lead well.
Thank you for listening to Deep Leadership.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for all you do.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more information and updates, please visit our website at www.deepleadershippodcast.com or johnsrennie.com. Until next time, take care.
Are you passionate about saving the planet for future generations? Do you want to learn how to do it? If yes, then you need to tune in to the NatureBacked podcast. It's a talk show covering the changing world around us, from renewable energy, sustainable agriculture, circular economy, to ESG and social innovation. Don't miss this opportunity to discover how you can join the movement and make a difference. Subscribe to the NatureBacked podcast today on your favorite platform and get ready to be amazed.
Hey there, I'm DC. I host the Rock Podcast, Back to the Arena, The Interviews. It's about a 30-minute podcast where I talk one-on-one with a band who has released new music. You can find us on all the best podcast sites like Spotify, Apple, Google, iHeartRadio, and more. If you're a rock fan like me, subscribe today to Back to the Arena, The Interviews.
Electricast.